Welcome to the Wild Carrot Farmstead's Pharmacy School. I'm your pharmacist, Tanya Snyder. Every year on Instagram, we share our natural cough syrup remedy, which is fermented lemons, ginger, turmeric, a bit of black peppercorn, fermented, and honey. This is a great option for the whole family, 1-year-old and older. And this is a great remedy that your kids will come running to you for instead of away from. So come along and let's make this together. Before we begin, let's have a quick lesson on fermentation. What is fermentation or fermented foods? Well, fermentation is one of the most ancient preservation techniques that's around. It is simply taking a fruit or vegetable, submersing it into a brine that's often honey or even water or salt and water, and allowing it to sit often for 4 to 6 weeks underneath that brine while a chemical reaction occurs. Now, that chemical reaction is when bacteria and yeast in the vegetable or fruit feeds off of the sugar or carbohydrate that's in the brine or in the honey. That process produces a gas, which is effervescent and gives fermented foods a bubbly, unique experience for your taste buds. Not only fermented foods are preserved in the brine that they're being fermented in, they also are often more nutritious. During the fermentation process, probiotics are often built. The food in the brine, it also becomes more nutritious the longer it ferments, building probiotics and vitamins and minerals as it goes. We have 8 people in our family, so I am going to be fermenting a gallon-sized jar of cough syrup. This is something we have on stock all season long. It will literally soothe a sore throat on the spot. It will stop a cough in its tracks. You can also take this cough syrup and then cook it down on the stove to the cracking point. I think that's around 300 degrees. And then pour it off into parchment and even make cough drops from it. It's amazing in a tea. It's great to just drink. It's effervescent. It's light. It's kind of like ginger ale. It is so yummy. You're gonna wanna make a large amount. Now, I know honey, depending if you have to buy it or not, is expensive. It can be hard to source. You want raw honey. That will feed the ferment the best. So you do the size of jar that is what you can do and within your budget. We are on a farm. We have access to a lot of fresh produce and honey all the time. So again, for my family, we choose this gallon jar. Another thing I like about this recipe is you can leave the skins on your lemons. I just rough chop them and put them in here. You can take your ginger, and I don't even usually peel that. I just grate it down. Now, you can use other citruses in this cough syrup. You can also get creative and add things like thyme and rosemary. Those would be great additions to this recipe. People often ask if they could add garlic to it or onions. While those are great immune supporters and natural antibiotic options, we leave those out because then it takes the flavor profile from sweet to more of that savory. And we do fermented garlic and honey separately anyways for an immune booster. So we keep that as one remedy, and then we use this more sweeter profile and this remedy. So you can do whatever you want to. That's just a little bit of insight on why we keep them separate. Here's our turmeric root. A lot of people, it's kind of tricky to source. This is what it looks like if you've never seen it. I'll bring it closer to the camera here. It almost looks like little fingers, kind of in between ginger and carrots. But these will peel You also don't necessarily have to peel these. I like to grate it, and since everything is straining out of your cough syrup to begin with, I would say there's not necessarily a need to peel. If you want to, do it. Another thing people always ask me, they struggle finding fresh turmeric. If you can't, you can use powdered turmeric. That is totally fine. Another thing when working with turmeric, be it fresh root or powder, you want to add some black pepper to that. Black pepper activates the turmeric and allows our body to absorb it to the best of its ability. So go ahead and throw some black peppercorns into this cough syrup recipe too. Don't overdo it because again, we're not trying to make it spicy. We're trying to make it more on the sweet side. So everything has been washed and prepared, and now I'm going to start just kind of chopping or slicing up my fruit. And as I go, I like to layer it so everything gets in the jar nicely and I don't have to go back and kind of rearrange it later. So for example, I'll do kind of a layer of lemons and then a layer of turmeric and then a layer of ginger. And I'm also going to put oranges in here since it's the holidays and I have access to lots of oranges. So then a layer of oranges and some black peppercorn and then repeat it. And I just kind of continue those layers until my jar is filled right about to here, about a good 3/4 of the way to the top is about how much room I want to fill with tightly packed fruits and herbs. So I have my grater here, and I'm just gonna go in with the turmeric and grate it down. Sometimes I can even position it right over the jar like this and grate right into the jar. It smells so good. I love the smell of fresh grated turmeric. You could definitely rough chop the turmeric and ginger too. I just find that this infuses into the ferment quicker and better if I kind of grate it. But if pieces fall off into the jar, I'm okay with that. It doesn't have to be perfect. And since I added my layer of turmeric, I'm gonna add a little pinch of black pepper so I don't forget. And then as I go, I kind of just push my layers down a bit to make sure that holes are kind of filled, the gaps are filled in. Now for the ginger, again, you can grate it down, you can chop it, you can peel it first. Again, I don't necessarily find it necessary to peel, and since I'm trying to process a lot, I don't take the time to do that. So totally up to you. If you are gonna chop it thinly. All right, into the jar that goes. Now I'm gonna start with lemon again. It smells so good in here. All right, now more turmeric, and I'll show you, I'm gonna slice it this time. If you haven't checked this reel out on Instagram, go check it out and read through the comments. There's so many good additional bits of information that you can pick up on by reading through the community comments about this. If you have any questions, comment below and I'll help answer those for you. There's no limit or dosage recommendation on this. It's as an as needed basis. You're gonna want to drink a whole glass of it when you try it, I tell you that. Do one more chop of turmeric, and since I added more turmeric, I'm gonna add just a little bit more black pepper to that layer before I add some more orange and ginger. Now, come on and let's have a closer look. Come over my shoulder. All right, now that I have you over here, now you can see the turmeric here. And You don't have to have the orange. If you have any citrus in your jar for this cough syrup, it's the lemon you at least want to make sure you have. All right, I'll kind of show you what our jar looks like here. I'm gonna add some more turmeric to that and maybe one more orange and I'll be happy with it. Let's bring you back around to the front again. All right, so let's kind of top our jar off with some more turmeric here. I have a lot of turmeric this time around, so I'll probably make another batch of this, and then I'll probably also take some of this turmeric root and make a tincture from it too and keep that on hand. Turmeric is so good for inflammation. It is like nature's Tylenol. You could take a turmeric tincture or take turmeric in powdered form every day if you suffer with pain or have chronic inflammation or headaches. Get on a turmeric regimen, and if you're doing that, you need to be taking a black pepper supplement as well to really allow your body to fully absorb the turmeric. And the thing about that, turmeric isn't going to damage your stomach lining like Tylenol, long-term effects of Tylenol. Much healthier option. So after this, we'll put some of this turmeric root into some vodka and allow it to sit for 4 to 6 weeks along next to this, and we'll have a natural cough remedy and a natural pain and inflammation reducer on hand for our family. And then we'll end it with we'll actually end it with a couple more lemons. And then the fun part, we're gonna add the honey. You wanna use, as I mentioned before, raw honey. That really will have the best effects for this and really will feed your ferment. Raw honey is gonna really kickstart your ferment. Now this is gonna get super effervescent and bubbly. You're gonna have gases build, and that's when burping is gonna come into play. The likelihood of this jar exploding is like really slim, but what is highly likely to happen is if you don't burp, you're gonna get oozing honey coming out of the lid and seeping down onto your counters, and it's gonna be a mess. So remember to burp, and you might even want to place your jar on top of a plate while it's fermenting in case you do have any seepage and spillover. That's totally fine if that happens. Just make sure if it does happen that there's enough honey, if honey was displaced, that you add more honey to it to make sure everything stays submerged underneath the honey. If things start coming up above the honey, you're gonna run the risk of the fruit to mold and losing this whole ferment. Another method that I use when I'm fermenting things is by using fermentation weights that are placed on top after your brine or honey is added that will keep everything under. Now, if you don't have a fermentation weight, that's okay. I do have them and sometimes still choose not to use them. One of my preferred methods to weight a ferment down is to take a little baggie, like a Ziploc baggie, and fill it with a little bit of the brine or just a little bit of the honey, just in case if that baggie breaks open. That's to weight it down. But put whatever brine or honey you're using into that baggie in case it breaks open. You're not spoiling the overall ferment. It's just seeping out a little bit of what's already in your jar. But that little baggie with a little bit of weight in it, placed in the top before you screw the lid on, will also ensure that everything stays underneath your jar, underneath your brine or honey, and stays as it should. As I'm chatting here with you, you can see I'm adding a little bit at a time, waiting for it to work its way down. It's moving pretty quickly. So as it works its way down, I add a little bit more. You can see it a little bit better here. So then when I'm to this point, I'll let it rot, everything's settled, the honey work its way down, some things will rise, some will fall. So I'll just leave it alone for a minute, go do something else, and then come back and check on it and add some more honey. So it's been a few minutes. I went ahead and stirred dinner, and now everything's settled, and I'm just gonna pour the last bit of honey over the top here. All right, she's all filled up. So now I'm just gonna place my little baggie over the top to just make sure everything stays underneath. Again, just place it in and you'll see what happens. How that your fruits go under and the honey goes over the top. And then if you have a plastic lid, that's ideal, and you'll secure it next. Now if you have a metal lid, that's great too. But go ahead and stick a piece of parchment on before you cap it. That way the metal won't leach into your ferment. We don't really want that to happen. Stainless steel is okay for it to touch your ferment, to touch honey. Other metals, it's not okay. Also, if you have a fermentation flute or an airlock, that's a little thing that allows air to come in and out of the jar on its own. By all means, use that too. I like to use a plastic lid, screw it on, and then I just burp it. For this one, you don't have to ferment it the traditional 4 to 6 weeks. If you want to, by all means, you can. The longer something ferments, often the better it is. This though just needs a minimum of 1 week fermenting in a cool, dark place, and then 1 week of infusing in your fridge for another week. That 1 week of infusion allows the flavors to develop more, and it stops the fermentation process. After that, you will pull it out of your fridge after a total of 2 weeks, strain your ingredients off, and then your syrup is what the honey, everything that's left is what you're going to use as your cough syrup. That cough syrup is shelf stable. You can put it on your apothecary. It will last, possibly indefinitely. You'll probably consume it before it's going to go bad. You can also stick it in the fridge if that makes you feel better. Again, something to note, your honey is going to go from thick to thin, and that is how it should be. It's okay. That is your natural cough syrup remedy, as step by step, learning along with me. I hope you enjoyed your pharmacy class this week. We'll see you next week. Have a wonderful day.